And we are live. Welcome back to Stream of Thoughts, where the stream is thought up of, and thus the stream exists. I really need to be more consistent with these things, or maybe that is the consistency. Anyways, we, well, I figured that since we've been talking about games, well, let's keep the train going. And, try to get me started on talking a little bit about myself more and more. Hopefully that'll be, well, I say hopefully that'll be alright, but, well, it's it's okay. We got an audience of nil. So it's alright in my book. Let's, well, get started. And, yeah. There we go. Anyways, yeah, so today it's, yeah, seemingly simple topic. What are a few of my favorite video games? I should mention that. I am a fan of, well, generally a lot of other games that don't fall into the video media. But I think I could say that for another day, for another good discussion. But really, this discussion could really just be, well, done and easy. I could just list off all my favorite games and that's about it, but that's the, that's not exactly how I work around here. So, there'll be some analyzing. There'll be some uh well, not quite analyzing, but kind of going in depth about my views of games and what makes the game likable for me, or so I think. So, where to begin? I mean, I guess, well, I guess, yeah, create a thesis, I guess, and I guess, well, for that, it would be that for me, I feel like the games I like are the kinds that the kinds of games that can go beyond being just a simple means of entertainment, or can be that could do something new or different with its medium, or perhaps create some sort of different style or whatnot, would be kind of the big broad strokes of what I like about what some of my, well, most like games are. But I guess to put it specifically, so like if it has an iconic soundtrack, if it has unique mechanics in which, well, it's put to its fullest in the game, or maybe it's just, well, it creates fun in a unique way, or maybe the rules within the game are unique, something like that. Now, for more, specific games, because it could be difficult to narrow down at that, I guess I'd say I enjoy games that, just narrowing it down, would provoke thought, are often the games I like. Sometimes it could be most direct, and sometimes it could be more external, or kind of, well, how do I put it? Uh, well, sometimes it could be direct, but sometimes it could be kind of philosophical, I guess would be the word, or something that would get one to think about their own lives. Something that can weigh heavy on the mind. Although, weigh heavy on the mind kind of entails that it feels dark or, well, burdening. So I guess that's not exactly what I mean, but somewhere there. Something that, I guess, something meaty to think about, I guess would be the way to put it. So I guess with that, I know there's not a lot of, well, nothing's really specific, and that's kind of how I think. There's not really a means of, well, I don't really play the favorites or list games because I know that they could change so fluidly, especially with, well, I feel like some of my favorite games could change depending on the day of the week, time of the year, things like that. And so I know that, rather than have a list, just have a group of things and possibly assess them based on, well, try to give them a quality that you could see, and perhaps then you could find more games that you'd like. Oh sure, let's talk about specific games. So I guess for just a brief, just to put, just to start off with the simple, I said earlier that I like games that make you think, sometimes in the most literal sense. So what I mean by this is I enjoy puzzle games. My favorite, well, one of my favorite games would have to be, or series, would have to be the Professor Layton series. Very good at engaging your mind in, in creating almost puzzle, they create a puzzle environment, and all the while you're trying to solve this kind of overshadowing mystery, which I definitely feel can be solved by on your own. If, especially the earlier ones, where things like that made sense. And so for these kinds of games, as probably you've seen in the channel before or not, I'd like to exercise my mind. My mind's very important. It's a very important tool to use. It's important that it gets exercise, is in practice. Why I do all these mental things. And so definitely puzzle games are up there for me. But I also said, in terms of thought, that some of the games I like are ones that are just ones that kind of just force you to think. Kind of outside the game, I guess, is what I'm bringing forth. So probably a great example of these, of games that I like, would be the Nier series. Those have been, those games have been interesting because they kind of developed the concept of philosophy into gaming, and it's something I really like. A really good segue for the next part, but a lot of the games there deal with kind of various philosophical aspects. The original Nier, or Gestalt Replicant, dealt with what it meant to be human. And so it delved into those situations where, it dealt with I've already said what it meant to be human, and it also kind of focused a bit on the ethical part of being human as well, which is why I mainly enjoy the Nier over Automata, which is its sequel, asterisk. Well, it is a sequel, but it's an almost unrelated sequel. And Automata deals kind of with the philosophy of machines and robots. What makes a robot, what makes it a machine, sentient thought, things like that. And for me personally, I do enjoy the philosophical concept of being human much more than kind of the philosophy of machines. And so these games kind of are more philosophically driven. They're more thought provoking. A lot of times the game, they're sad games. They often cause you to contemplate, think about why things are, why they are. And as someone who's done a bit of philosophy, I've enjoyed kind of the thought-provoking nature of the games and seeing how other people would react to it, how they would feel, if they would feel the exact same way or the exact opposite. So there is that. Now I've mentioned, the segue, that I like games that kind of go outside of what they do go outside of being a game. Now I've talked about Professor Layton, and while that game, for as much as I like it, is very much its own thing. Of course, this doesn't mean I dislike it more, but the point is that, well, it's very much a game contained within itself. You play it, you enjoy it, and then you close it, and it's all good. But with some other stories, they might be more thought-provoking. So I've talked about Nier, and how it can be a reflection of one's own life, and how it can, well, apply itself to daily lives, cause someone to reflect, cause someone to think. A lot of its, well, narrative and dialogue is meant to provoke thought, is kind of meant to go beyond being a game. With these kinds of games, you kind of close the game and you're still thinking about it. And that's kind of what I like about some games. But also, kind of, in addition to this, not only is there kind of an aspect of games that stick with you, but also kind of fits in the category of games that go outside of being a game. Now it's, I guess, for lack of a better term, it's no longer just fun and games. Now it's actually a form of art, perhaps you could say, perhaps in the form of literature. Perhaps you could say it visually. And just putting it generally, I do like games that are able to identify themselves as being beyond something you could just play and be done with, but rather a game that you could apply. And, well, bring it. Yeah, a game you could apply in various situations, or, well, that would be applicable to, or how would I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I guess this is the improvisation part of stream of thoughts, just whatever comes off the tongue. But it goes beyond the medium of games, or being on, I'll quote unquote, entertaining, fun video game, in order to try to push forward as its own medium in a way that it kind of becomes less of a game. I don't really like saying that, because game has this negative intonation, kind of has this negative background to it, where you could say a game is childish, and so people won't often bat an eye in seeing that it can be deep or in depth. And so, I mean, you can say video media, I guess, or interactive media as well would also apply. But then you'd have to, well, it's kind of a roundabout way, because it still is a game in its core. Anyways, aside from that, so what do I mean by this? What are the kinds of games that I like from this? And, well, for this, I'd like to bring up probably some narratives. A lot of narrative games are what pop up. Once again, they also follow the thought-provoking category that I put up as well. So these games are definitely ones I like. So for instance, the 999 series, that is a phenomenal visual novel game, where the way that the story is told, it's, well, the way visual novels work is basically you're mostly reading through a plot while still playing a game. But anyways, the purpose of this game, should I say, is to kind of solve the kind of figure out the story. But the way it does it is that it has branching pathways, so you can determine where you want to go, and that determines which clues you get. It determines how you experience the story, and with that, we already have this medium that could only really be that's best that's uh best done by video games. So I meant it's a game with a splitting narrative. uh the closest thing that I could think of that can mimic that is something like a choose your own adventure book, where things can split and diverge. And well, while it's not really a common popular a choose your own adventure book isn't really that popular as a means of telling a story in games, it kind of is. Or at least I feel like, well, biased opinion. That's, well, but, uh, what am I trying to say? But I definitely feel that it stands out more as a game than any other medium. And it's because of that, it's because it sticks out, because it could only be fit within the confines of game, that, well, I enjoy it. It's thought provoking, it's unique, it's creative. And so I do enjoy that. Following that train of thought is probably my current favorite game of all time. Well, no, I can't say of all time. I just said I was ever changing. My current favorite game. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. It's not really a well-known game. It was poorly advertised when it came out for the PlayStation. I want to say 2 years ago. Recently released for the Switch. I've talked about its yes, I talked about its release in the second event, but just a sec. That game also does something special with its storytelling. It's a visual novel, once again, and pretty much the shtick of it is you get to choose how you want your story to unfold. You get to choose what information you want to get and try to figure out how to do things from there. The more I say it, the more it sounds similar to 999, but there's the type of storytelling is different in both. You'll just have to take my word for it because, well, I mean, I don't like to leave heavy spoilers or even medium spoilers behind, but well, a lot of what this game does is it tells it actually tells 13 separate stories, as well as this giant overshadowing story. And once again, I said you could choose which stories you'd like to take on, choose which clues you get, and kind of create your own experience from there. And since you could choose whatever, each experience is unique. And that's what I find that is excellent about that game. It can't be done through any other medium, or it would be difficult, but games are kind of the place where it stands out. I think I've talked about everything I want to. But yes, it's these kinds of games that I guess games that stand out for its unique identity, for being able to stand out amongst, well, too many games that come out, frankly. And so it's kind of these ones that are important to, well, to learn about. Let's see, are there any other favorite games I haven't mentioned yet? Well, can't really think of anything else. Oh, I guess there's my list for now. We've got Professor Layton, the Nier series, uh, 999 series, and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. So about a top 5 with some series in there. It's efficient, although there are some other aspects of games I haven't I've mentioned but haven't covered, such as games that can be in the form of artwork, or perhaps games that have unique mechanics to them. But all those are fairly straightforward, I feel. But I guess to provide some examples, The Unfinished Swan and What Remains of Edith Finch for artistic looking games. That'd uh that'd be one for artistic looking games. And for games with unique mechanics, I can't really think of any off the top of my head. The first item that pops up in my mind is Splatoon, where it's it's a shooter game, which has been done, has felt like it's been run to the ground many times, but really, the goal is to use your use your gun, air quotes gun, because there are a variety of creative weapons to paint the ground. And whoever has the most territory at the end wins, is the most common game mode, but it's a unique form of shooter where no one's, it can't it stands out amongst the genre of shooters. It tries something new. Yes, it tries something new, and well, it's it's gone to be a better creative product. I, as you could guess, I generally don't like those. I'm generally not a fan of games that kind of do the same thing over and over. It definitely feels. Although, there are always exceptions, probably. I just can't think of any right now. But I guess remakes, for instance, or if things have done similar mechanics but have a good story. I guess a lot of the common thread in a lot of my favorite games is they have great stories. And so I guess that's another thing I could put in my list of favorites. Ooh, okay. I think that's about everything I wanted to say. A lot of that, talks about games. I'm definitely in my comfort zone here, although that discussion felt like a bit of a mess, so apologies. But, yeah, those are my thoughts, those are my favorite games. And, well, I don't know what I could say. I guess I would love to talk about what I've mentioned before about games being beyond games, and kind of working towards kind of the aspect of being an interactive medium and how that would work. Because a dream of mine would be to see games actually kind of be held in a similar regard to film or literature, where it could be seen as games that are insightful or creative, things like that. But that day hasn't quite come yet. But I do hope it at least happens in my lifetime. Hopefully soon. But I think I will save that discussion for another day. Especially since I feel like that kind of discussion needs a fair amount of notes. So, yeah, I guess that is where I'll wrap up this stream of thoughts. That has been the stream. Those have been my thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed my views and games. Well, that actually help you understand what I'm talking about. I don't know. Words just come out of my mouth. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. That's the purpose of stream of thoughts, to get me practicing. So yeah. Thanks for much so listening. And well, next week is gonna be the half-year anniversary. I'll talk a lot about progress and views, views on the channel, things like that. Should be an interesting and probably fairly long talk. But that's next week, and I'm finished this week.